We are at Huddle Up event with Zack and Joel, and they work at Edward Jones, correct? And you guys are financial advisors. All right. So how'd you guys get into that field?
This is Zach Zoufaly and my brother Joel Zoufaly. It's actually both have a pretty crazy story, but both really start. I'll let you start since it kind of started with you.
Yeah, so when I was in my early 20s,
Yeah.
I joined the Air Force, and I was just one of the normal people who wanted to join, didn't really have a direction in life. And I got stationed in the middle of nowhere, New Mexico, with nothing to do.
Nice.
I was looking for a house on the golf course. I bumped into this guy who was renting a house, and he was a financial advisor with Edward Jones. He's a few years older than me. We ended up being best friends. And every day after work in my uniform, for no real reason, I just go hang out with him in his office. And over 3 or 4 years of doing that, I learned the business. And then one day I got to actually sit in on one appointment, my first ever appointment I sat in on. And this 69-year-old man who was a carpenter for 30 years, he comes in, he's got these mangled fingers. He's been obvious arthritis like crazy.
Right.
And his wife's 71. She's a teacher, the nicest small town people in the world. And I'm sitting on this, and my buddy sits down with him. He's like, okay. And they're like, we're ready to retire. He pulls up their stuff, and his like head drops, the energy in the room drops. He goes, guys, we're about to have a really hard conversation. He's like, you have $34,000 to your name. You're going to outlive this money in the next 24 months. We need to talk about how we're going to get through this. And I get chills every time I say this because I saw reality set in for two people that's too late. And literally, I probably cried myself to sleep that night. But the next morning, I got up and I said, I'm going to get out of the military. I'm going to go back to business school. And that's what I did. I went to school in New York City at Fordham, did that for a handful of years, worked a few other financial jobs. And that ultimately led me to Edward Jones, where I wanted to be to begin with.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, so it was like a full circle pretty much, right?
Yeah. I mean, you seriously, I always think about how I went to New Mexico for a military job as a mechanic. Never really dreamed of the finance world, didn't understand it, didn't know anything about it.
Totally different. Yeah.
Our parents are blue collar people. Postal, my mom worked at the post office for 30 years. My dad was a lineman for Verizon for 30 plus
Right.
years. Both are retiring, very wealthy individuals. They taught my brother and I just the value of investing.
Yeah.
So as we were getting older and I would talk to my peers or people even 10 years older than me, they wouldn't have any money. And I was like, I'm 20 years old and I have better understanding of where my retirement is than these people.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is my calling. This is where I'm meant to help people. And I kind of called Zach and said, man, I think there's a direction we should consider.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's my story, how I got here.
Well, that's kind of like if you really think about it, it's like just regular public school things. Like they don't ever teach you about finances. You don't understand money, right? And all the kids that do come from wealthier families that are educated with money, they're all in private school.
Yep.
So really, like public education really doesn't do it for you. So it's also like one of the like growing up in a household, right? Because we're Asian, we're half Asian, right? Money was always a really big thing because it's cultural.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure you guys are very familiar with that as well.
The Asian lifestyle?
Yeah. No? Are you serious? You guys have no idea? Okay. Well, in the Asian household, right? Like it's actually like a religious thing.
Okay.
Like we're not Chinese, but we have a lot of friends that are Chinese, and like they actually have a money god.
Okay.
Right. Like a god that like is specific for financial success. So like growing up in this household, like in an Asian household, it's kind of like one of those understandings. It's kind of like Israel as well, like Jewish people.
Yeah.
It's all about finance because you're supposed to take that money and you're supposed to use it as a tool. But when like growing up with other friends in America, we didn't have anybody that could kind of understand that or like had the same understanding of it, right?
Yeah.
So that's just like public education is where I'm coming from.
Yeah, they don't do anything on budgeting. They don't
Right.
do anything on financial workshops,
Simple
debt,
credit cards.
like staying out of debt.
Yeah.
Or even investing for your future. It doesn't make any sense to us that we're so prone to want to think about Social Security when we get out to retirement. Yet,
Right.
if everybody started a Roth IRA and put away for it,
Yeah.
even if they didn't max it out every year, would be more than all right and have way more money than Social Security that's
That's
going to
true.
pay you
Yeah.
out.
It's really that simple to start. Like that's ground level if everyone
it's
just
basic.
did the Roth IRA every year.
Right. That's the basics. And then there's like so many other things that you can go towards, right? So we're actually we started off just working at like a regular ice cream shop. Me and him, we've been best friends since 6th grade.
Yeah, a long time.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. So we've kind of like grew together. And at one point, you know, I kind of got into the financial sector as well. And basically just had a better understanding of like, hey, like you can't work a shitty job and then be able to afford all the things that we want to afford, right?
Yeah.
So getting into that financial sector and then bringing him on kind of like what you guys are doing has made it so much more, I guess, more freedom. It's provided more freedom to do other things. So I'm glad that you guys are, you know, in that field as well. Are you guys more focused on more like helping people, I guess, retire, or are you guys more
Man,
like goal settings?
You just said the perfect thing. Like, this is exactly what I tell everybody. Our whole thing is that we want to give you financial freedom.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that just when you hit retirement, when you hit that goal, that you're going to retire with the freedom. It's when you have a plan in place, knowing how to get to retirement and be able to live on the income you want to live off of.
Yeah.
And that's what we get. People are like, oh, how do you do these trips? How do you buy these things? How do you do this? Because I have a plan.
Mm,
I can spend my money. I put away a lot of money every month,
yeah.
knowing that whatever's left, so what I try to do is at the end of each month, whatever's left, let's say it's $1,000, right? I'll take 60% of that and I'll put it away and I'll spend whatever's left and just go buy whatever I want with it. I'll make myself spend it because I know I'm doing my job.
Right.
And I want to spend my money. Some people are so tied to their cash. We've got friends and clients, millionaires, and they're afraid to spend the money
Yeah.
because they're just used to never touching it. And it's like,
Well,
you gotta
because
live your life.
they build those habits for so long rather than finding a balance to it. But
Right,
I do
there's a
think
balance.
people tend to order how they pay for things out of their income in the wrong manner. So you'll see a lot of people, bills tend to be everybody has to pay their bills, right? Your rent, your mortgage, your utilities, your internet, your phone, right? Everybody's paying those. But then they come with entertaining and dining, right? Rather than where Joel and I go is it's bills, retirement, then entertaining and dining. If you did it in that manner, now you're free to whatever's left over to spend, but you've put away for retirement. So months where you don't have as much cash handy and you spent too much the month before, you don't get to go out entertaining and dining. And people are upset about that, but I'd much rather be able to retire when I want to retire or even earlier than the reverse. And that's where people also get into trouble is then they start to spend too much on entertaining and dining. You ask somebody how much they spend on entertaining and dining, they'll say like $200-$300 a month. That'll be their 1 week. You go through their budget and it's like, that's your 1 week expenditure. Do that times 4.5.
Right.
Oh yeah, I talked to some people. It's like $2,000-$3,000 a month they spend on going out to eat.
Yeah.
And like he said, we go through your budget, and they think, oh, my whole monthly budget's $2,500. We get halfway down the budget sheet, and we're past $2,500.
So what's the rule of thumb when it comes to how much money of your income you're supposed to be using on, you know, your needs and your accessory, like your bills, and then your wants?
Well, it's going to be dependent upon each individual. Like how much do you want in retirement compared to how you want to live now, right? There's no one size fits all.
Right.
So even with investment plans, like I always say, everybody's a snowflake. No two things are the same.
Right.
So it's going to be dependent upon your scenario. Now, are there standards as far as what you should be doing? Probably. But it also depends. Once your income hits a certain level, right? You're at such a high income, then you can probably spread that even further. So you'll have more money to spend than you actually need.
Gotcha.
So it's dependent on the scenario. Like I said,
So it's based. So what you're saying is like it's based on like how aggressive your retirement plan is.
well, how much do you want in retirement? Do you want your standard of living in retirement to be where you are now?
Right.
Do you want it to be slightly below that?
Gotcha.
Do you want that to be slightly above that, right? The more you commit to it, the more you're going to have in retirement. If that's your goal is to retire comfortably earlier, well, then you need to put more money towards it.
Gotcha.
If your goal is to just keep your standard of living, set that goal and you can keep that relatively in that, I would say anywhere between 10 and 20% a month going away is going to get you to that goal if you start early enough.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
I think a lot of people, when I've lived all over the country, Boston, Texas,
Yeah.
New York City, now Vegas. Whenever I look to live places, you talk to a real estate agent or someone who's looking to rent an apartment, and they're like, oh, you can do 40-50% of your income and pay for it. And like, you can, I guess,
Yeah.
if you don't want to pay for anything else.
Yeah.
I know the standard is probably like 33% of what you make is what you should put towards your mortgage or your rent. I don't even think I do that. I think I do like 23 or 24%.
Yeah, because that frees up even more for retirement.
That makes
right?
sense.
But pick and choose, right?
Yeah.
Some people are big into cars and don't care what their house looks like as much. And that's fine. To each their own, right?
Yeah.
I don't drive a fancy car. I want to get to A to B as cheap as possible because you have to give up somewhere. I don't care how you
Right.
put it, no matter how much money you make. And as you make more money, some people who never had it, as soon as you start making real money,
They
you start spending it and then
Yeah.
you build the habits. And now you're putting away
True.
what you're putting away 5 years ago, but now your living expenses are up. So once
Yeah.
again, when you hit the retirement age, you're used to living on, let's say, 150,000, but you invested like you had 80,000.
Yeah.
And it's a harsh reality when the day comes if you don't prepare
Absolutely.
for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. We gotta wrap it up so we can interview more people. But one of the mottos on our podcast is embrace the fearless. We encounter fear every day, and I'm sure especially with investments and looking to your future, retirement, all that. I mean, I'm sure that strikes a lot of fear in a lot of people, especially with people that don't have a lot of income or whatever. They just
Yeah.
don't know. We haven't been taught that. What are some things that you guys do to overcome that fear?
As far as when it comes to investments, I think that's why a financial advisor or wealth manager is so important.
Mhm.
They kind of talk you off the ledge in those times where there's crisis.
Mm.
When the market's down and people are getting all nervous about it, if you have time-tested investments, that's where the advisor comes in. And the first question I always ask is, do you need the money today? Oh, no, I'm 20 years from retirement. What do you care then?
Mm.
This is a great time to accumulate more shares. Let's get past that fear and realize that it's a time to be aggressive. Warren Buffett says, be aggressive when others aren't and be scared when others are.
Yeah.
Like that's so important for people to understand. Stock market is one of the only markets where everything goes on sale and people freak out and run out of the store.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Mhm.
that's just not how it should be. But I wanted to, before you guys let me go, I wanted to finish with my story because it
Well,
kind of like
yeah.
intertwines with his.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to miss on that. So it's crazy. So he started that journey, right? I was going to school, playing sports, played D1 baseball and D1 football. Ended up getting out of school with my biology and chemistry degree, and I went to work for a lab in San Francisco. It was a startup company. I was a biochemist there.
Oh, wow.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, crazy.
Makes
So I worked in a lab, 12-hour shifts, goggles, lab coat. We have a picture of it. Joel laughs at it all the time. But I worked by myself, and it wasn't for me. I'm a little bit more of a social butterfly than that.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up getting out of there, moved to Hawaii to help my cousin out, and was living there and was like, what am I going to do? Ended up going back to play baseball, got drafted into the minors for a single A team in between here and LA. Tore my UCL. I've torn both my ACLs, but I tore my UCL. And a buddy I went to college with was doing biomedical sales, and he got me a job doing biomedical sales. Went to do that. Did that for about 2 years. Was fantastic, but did the trauma unit, so helped surgeons put implants in.
Right.
And what ended up happening was you just get super burnt out by it.
Yeah.
I was also doing a bodybuilding competition.
Mm.
Oof.
I got recruited by Chippendales, and that's what led me to Vegas. So they called me
Oh,
up
shit.
and they invited me out for an audition. I had never danced before, like, freaking hit
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Come out for the audition, ended up going through the whole process. 2 days later, got hired, got in my car and drove out to Vegas, never having been here before.
Right. Right.
Moved out here. He found me a place in a freaking handicapped lady's house that was just a room for rent,
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
$100 a month. I was like,
Damn.
perfect. Moved all my stuff in, started going to choreography classes, things like that. So I got to do that for 2 years, which
Yeah,
is for another podcast. You'll have to have us on. We'll
Yeah,
give
yeah.
you some more stories.
Oh, I'm down.
So did that for 2 years, and then COVID hit, and obviously they don't want you dancing on people in
Yeah.
COVID. So ended up getting headhunted at that time for a fitness department back in New England that also had a baseball team.
Ah.
So I ended up going there to open up their fitness department and then coach baseball. I only did that for 6 months because my fiance and our son is here, and she's like, no, it's time to come back. You're not signing up for another route, like run around. And so I ended up coming back. I was like, what am I going to do? So I looked up coach. I ended up getting financial coach came up. And so I met with the firm that I'm no longer with. And they were like, well, there's 4 really hard exams. If you can pass them, then we'll hire you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most people take about a year, 6 months to a year to do these exams. I did them in 3 months
Nice.
Nice.
and was a top producer in that company in 2 years.
Wow.
Okay.
So
I took the full year with the exams. I wasn't doing that in 3 months before.
So it was a fantastic experience, and I got into it, and it was crazy because I remember he was working at a chemical plant at that point in time, and I was doing finance. So my degree's in biology and chemistry, his is in finance, and so we flip-flopped and we were laughing about it.
Oh, shit.
So Edward Jones came calling, and it was what we had both were working towards. I got hired the same day I got hired, and they offered me the letter. I signed the letter. I said, hey, do you need another good financial advisor? He's working for an investment bank in Boston. And they're like, yeah, we actually do. I was like, call my brother. 3 days later, he got hired.
Oh, damn.
So now we get to work together, and we're building something special here. We work with high net worth individuals, influencers, and pro and semi-pro athletes. So
Oh, that's awesome. Is there any way you guys want to plug your guys' self in, how people can find you, reach out to you, if maybe they need your advice?
yeah, I mean, it's Zack and Joel Zoufaly. You can look up our names and type in Edward Jones right behind it, and you'll find exactly where you need to go.
Cool.
Always happy to help, answer questions. Doesn't cost anything to meet with us. We really just want the information, like you said, that should be out there. We want it to be out there. We have people come in all the time.
Mhm.
It's one of those things. You don't have to come in and sign up for a plan. You don't have to do anything.
Mhm.
Just come in and get the information. Obviously, if you want the information, if you want an advisor, it's seen to be very successful to have an advisor. We'd love to help you that way as well. Don't discount that.
Yep.
But we also want to help the person that just wants answers.
Absolutely.
And I know you're moving on to the next people coming in, but I did want to give you guys a shout for embrace the fearless part. You guys know what this life's like. Every time I think it gets easy, it gets hard.
Yeah.
If anyone out there that's trying to get somewhere, we have all spent those nights where it sucks.
Yeah.
We've had those days where we doubt everything. We've all been to rock bottom. We all have our own stories.
That's true.
This stuff, what you guys are helping with, seriously, if you can get through it, just every time I want to quit, which has been all the time,
Yeah.
I just think 80% of people quit right now. If I don't, I'm going to be in that top or higher tier.
Mhm.
True.
Every time and every time and every time.
Yeah.
Every morning, wake up, do it again.
Yep.
Do it again.
Yep.
What you guys are doing, awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank
that.
you guys. Thank you so much for having
our
us both
pleasure.
on.
Yeah.
And we'll
Check me out. You see me on the road, I'm in hustle mode, real estate mogul, commercial real estate.